When I, Adrian Vale, returned to Flint in my black luxury SUV, I expected to find my mother, Lorraine, resting comfortably in the riverfront home I'd paid to maintain for years. Instead, I found her inside a rusted shed beside the frozen Flint River, wrapped in a torn coat, boiling rainwater over a tiny propane stove. And when I whispered, "Mom," she looked at me with terror instead of joy. This wasn't just a discovery. It was the chilling start of a nightmare, a betrayal that had festered for years. 6 years away had changed me, in ways even I didn't fully understand. I had left Flint with one suitcase, a failing business plan, and the kind of anger that came from watching bills pile up on my mother's kitchen table. Now, I was coming back in a black SUV with heated leather seats, a private driver, and a construction tech company people wrote about in business magazines. But none of that mattered as much as the woman I was coming home to see. Lorraine Vale was 71 now. At least that was the number I kept repeating in my mind as the SUV moved past old factories, boarded windows, and streets I still knew by heart. 71. Too old to be worrying about heat. Too old to be carrying groceries alone. Too old to wonder whether her son remembered her. I had remembered. Every month without fail, I had sent money home. First a little, then more, then enough to cover the mortgage, utilities, repairs, food, medication, and a full-time helper, if she ever needed one. My younger half-brother, Warren, had handled everything. Warren had stayed in Flint. Warren had promised me over and over that our mother was safe. "She's fine," Warren would say. "You focus on your work. I've got Mom." I had believed him, because I wanted to. Because believing Warren let me stay away without feeling like a coward. Because money sent on time felt close enough to love when a man was too busy to come home. The driver turned toward the river road. I leaned forward. "Not this way," I said. "The house is on Marlowe Street. There's road work ahead." "Sir," the driver said, "this is the detour." I sat back, uneasy. The Flint River appeared through the bare trees, gray and slow beneath the cold sky. Snow lay in dirty patches along the bank. A few tents stood near an old service road, half hidden behind brush and broken fencing. Then I saw the smoke. It rose thin and weak from behind a rusted shape near the river. Not enough to be a fire, just enough to mean someone was trying to stay alive. "Stop the car," I said. The driver slowed. "Here, stop." I stepped out before the SUV fully settled. Cold hit my face. Sharp, metallic, familiar. I walked toward the riverbank, my polished shoes sinking into frozen mud. The rusted structure came into view little by little. It was a shed, maybe 8 feet by 10, corrugated metal patched with mismatched scraps. One wall had been painted a dull green, but rust had bled through in orange streaks. A small solar panel sat crooked on the roof. A plastic barrel stood beside it, catching runoff from a bent gutter. Near the door, someone had laid a square of old carpet like a welcome mat. A homeless shelter, I thought at first. Then I saw the scarf. It hung from a nail beside the door, faded blue wool with one corner carefully mended by hand. My throat tightened. I knew that scarf. I had bought it for Lorraine the winter before I left. The shed door creaked open. An elderly woman stepped out, holding a dented metal cup. Her gray hair was tucked under a knit cap. Her coat was torn at one sleeve. Her hands were red from cold, but her posture still carried something I remembered. A quiet stubbornness, a dignity that hardship had bent but not broken. I could not breathe. "Mom," I whispered. The cup slipped from Lorraine's hand and hit the ground. Water spilled across the frozen dirt. For 1 second, her face opened with shock. Then fear closed over it. She stepped back. "No." I moved toward her. "Mom, it's me." "No," she said again, sharper this time. Her hand grabbed the edge of the door. "You shouldn't be here." The words stopped me harder than a slap. I had imagined tears. I had imagined her arms around my neck. I had imagined apology, laughter, maybe even anger, for staying away so long. I had not imagined terror. "Why are you living here?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Where's the house? Where's Warren?" Lorraine looked past me at the SUV, then back at my face like she was searching for the trick in it. "You don't have to pretend," she said quietly. "Warren showed me what you wrote." I frowned. "What I wrote?" Her lips trembled. That you were done. That you had your own life now. That I should stop calling. The cold seemed to move through my chest. I never wrote that. Lorraine stared at me. She wanted to believe me. I could see it. But belief had been beaten out of her slowly, month by month, lie by lie. And before I could say more, tires crunched behind us. A white city truck pulled up near the service road. A man in a dark jacket stepped out with a clipboard in one hand and a folded orange notice in the other. "Lorraine Vale," he called. Lorraine's shoulders tightened. The man walked closer, barely glancing at me. "This structure has been cited twice. You've got 48 hours to remove it before the city clears it." I turned slowly toward him. "Clears it?" The man looked at the rusted shed, then at Lorraine, as if both were the same kind of problem. "That's right," he said. 48 hours. I reached into my coat, pulled out my phone, and opened the account I had used for 6 years. My hand shook as the records loaded. Every monthly payment was there. Every transfer. Every dollar meant for Lorraine. The care fund had never stopped. I stared at the screen long after the city truck disappeared. The payments were there. Every month, every transfer. Some were large enough to cover a comfortable life. Others were marked specifically for medication, home maintenance, and personal care. There were no gaps, no missed months, no sudden stop. Someone had lied. Lorraine stood beside the rusted shack, with her arms folded tightly across her chest. The wind coming off the river tugged at her coat. She looked smaller than I remembered, but there was something else in her face now. Not weakness, distrust. I hated that more than anything. "Mom," I said quietly, "I never stopped sending money." Lorraine looked away. "Warren showed me the messages." "What messages?" She hesitated. "The ones where you said you were done paying for everything. The ones where you said you had your own life now." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "I never wrote those." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound came from the river and the loose sheet of metal rattling against the side of the shack. Finally, Lorraine shook her head. "I don't know what to believe anymore." Those words hurt more than accusations, because they meant the damage had been done slowly, over years, not in one moment. I looked at the shack again. Now that I was standing closer, I noticed details. The careful patching, the small, clean window, the way the solar panel was angled to catch the most sun. This wasn't a desperate, temporary shelter. This was a home, built with care, out of necessity. "Where's Warren?" I asked, the name tasting like ash. Lorraine flinched. "He comes by sometimes, to check on me." The way she said it, the hesitation, told me everything. Warren hadn't been checking on her. He'd been checking on the situation, making sure his carefully constructed lie held. "Mom, I need you to come with me," I said. "We're going to get you somewhere warm." She looked at the shack, then at me. "I can't just leave it. We'll figure something out," I promised, though I had no idea how. My priority was getting her safe, away from the cold, away from the immediate threat of eviction. I found a small motel on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, but it had heat and a bed. Lorraine was quiet, almost withdrawn, as if she expected it all to be taken away at any moment. The next morning, I called Warren. He answered with his usual jovial tone. "Adrian, long time no hear, brother. How's the big city life?" His voice grated on my nerves. "Warren, where's Mom?" A beat of silence. "Mom? She's fine. At the house, I assume." "She's not at the house, Warren. She's in a motel." Because she was living in a rusted shack by the river. The line went dead. He hung up on me. The anger that had simmered beneath my calm exterior finally erupted. This wasn't just about money. It was about my mother's dignity, her safety, her very existence. I drove straight to the house on Marlowe Street. The lawn was overgrown, the paint peeling, but it was still standing. The front door was unlocked. Inside, it was clear no one had lived there for a long time. Dust covered everything. The air was stale and cold. There were no signs of Lorraine, no personal touches. It was a shell. But what truly shocked me was in the living room. A large, framed photograph of me, from a magazine article, sat on the mantelpiece. Underneath it, a stack of letters. My letters, unopened. Next to them, a small, worn photo album. Inside, pictures of Lorraine and me, from when I was a child. And tucked between the pages, A small, handwritten note. It was from Lorraine's sister, Evelyn, who had passed away years ago. The note was old, yellowed, and creased. If anything ever happens to me, Lorraine must keep the river property. Do not let anyone take it. The river property. Not the house on Marlowe Street, but the land by the river. The land where Lorraine's shack stood. A cold dread settled over me. This wasn't just about Warren's greed. It was about something far larger. I called Marcy, a childhood friend, who now worked as a real estate agent in Flint. She had always been sharp, knew everything happening in town. Marcy, I need your help. I think Warren has been stealing from Mom, and I think it has something to do with the riverfront land. Marcy was quiet for a moment. Adrian, I heard rumors about a big development project along the river. High-end condos, retail space, they've been buying up parcels for years. Is Mom's land part of it? I asked, my voice tight. It's a key piece, Marcy confirmed. Connects a lot of the other parcels. Without it, the whole project stalls. She paused. And Warren, he's been seen talking to the developers. A lot. The pieces clicked into place. Warren hadn't just been stealing my money. He had been actively trying to force Lorraine off her land. The fake letters, the neglect of the house, the sudden eviction notice. It was all part of a calculated plan. He wanted the riverfront property, and he wanted my mother out of the way. I contacted a lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Ms. Davies, who specialized in property disputes. She listened patiently, her expression growing sterner with each detail. This sounds like a clear case of elder abuse and fraud, Mr. Vale, she said. We need to move quickly. The next day, I met Paul Ridley, the code enforcement officer who had issued the eviction notice. He arrived alone, no city vehicle, no uniform, just a tired-looking man in a worn jacket. This was not the same man who had treated Lorraine like a nuisance. You've been asking questions, he said, getting straight to the point. My mother deserves answers, I replied. Paul nodded. I know. The admission felt unexpected. What changed? I asked. Paul looked out the window. Your mother helped somebody years ago. My brother. He worked at the same factory. He got hurt, couldn't work anymore. Your mother spent months helping him file disability paperwork. The story surprised me. It sounded exactly like Lorraine, helping people, even when nobody noticed, even when nobody thanked her. I didn't know any of that until recently, Paul admitted. And when you found out, I finished, you started realizing you might be on the wrong side of this. Paul laughed bitterly. Exactly. Tell me what's happening, I urged. Paul lowered his voice. The development project. The investors are getting impatient. They've already purchased most of the river parcels. Not all of them. Your mother's property is causing problems. It connects several pieces. Access roads, utility routing, waterfront continuity. I listened carefully. This wasn't a conspiracy theory. It was business. Cold, practical, profitable. And Lorraine happened to be standing in the way. So they pressured her, I stated. Paul didn't answer directly, but his silence said enough. Who? I pressed. A company called Riverbend Development. The name meant nothing to me. Yet, what does Warren have to do with them? Paul's eyes lifted. A lot more than he admits. He pulled out his phone, showing me images, emails, internal communications, meeting notes, photographs. The third group made my blood run cold. One email specifically referenced Warren, not as Lorraine's son, not as a concerned caregiver, as a project contact. Warren wasn't just connected to the land dispute. He had been communicating directly with people involved in the development project. Months before Lorraine was pushed out. Months before the city suddenly started caring about code violations. Months before removal notices appeared. Paul then handed me a folded, yellowed piece of paper. It was Evelyn's note, the same one I had found. If anything ever happens to me, Lorraine must keep the river property. Do not let anyone. The rest was cut away. This was attached to a file involving your mother's parcel, Paul explained. Nobody seemed interested, but I was. Evelyn's note was a direct instruction, a plea to protect Lorraine and her land. It was the missing piece, connecting the dots between Warren's actions and the developer's agenda. The note wasn't just about inheritance. It was about a legacy, a promise to protect Lorraine. The confrontation with Warren was inevitable. Ms. Davies arranged a meeting, a sterile conference room, far from the river. Warren arrived, flanked by his own lawyer, looking defiant. "Adrian, this is ridiculous. Mom is old. She's confused. I was just trying to help her. Help her into a shack by the river?" I retorted, my voice laced with venom. "Help yourself to my money and her land?" Ms. Davies laid out the evidence, the bank records showing my payments diverted, the forged letters, the communications with Riverbend Development, and Evelyn's note. Warren's face, usually so expressive, went pale. His lawyer tried to interject, but the weight of the evidence was crushing. Warren had not only stolen from his mother, but had actively participated in a scheme to dispossess her of her rightful property, all while living off my generosity. The legal battle was protracted and ugly. Warren tried to paint Lorraine as mentally unfit, me as an absentee son trying to seize control. But the truth was undeniable. My regular payments, the forged documents, the direct communication with developers, it all pointed to his deliberate and malicious actions. The climax came during a public hearing. Lorraine, frail but resolute, stood before the council, her voice clear, despite her age. She spoke of her life on the river, the small community, the comfort she found in her simple home. She spoke of her sister Evelyn's wishes. She spoke of the fear she felt when she believed her own son had abandoned her. Her words resonated, not just with the council, but with the community. The local news picked up the story, casting Warren and Riverbend Development in a harsh light. The consequences for Warren were severe. He faced charges of fraud and elder abuse. His reputation was shattered. His wife, Celeste, who had benefited from his illicit gains, left him shortly after the hearings ended. Not during a dramatic argument, but quietly, packing her things once the money stopped flowing and the river deal stalled. I felt no satisfaction watching it happen, only sadness. Because greed had not destroyed strangers, it had destroyed family. Months later, Warren requested a meeting. Lorraine refused. Then she refused again. Then a third time. Eventually, she agreed to one condition. He had to stop defending himself. He had to tell the truth. Only then would she sit in the same room. Whether that meeting would ever happen remained uncertain. Some wounds healed slowly. Some required more than regret. Paul Ridley changed too. Not overnight. Not perfectly, but genuinely. He began working with several housing organizations serving the river camps. The same man who once treated the shelters as junk started helping residents connect with safer temporary housing options. He stopped seeing problems. He started seeing people. Marcy laughed when she heard someone call him compassionate, but even she admitted he was trying. And sometimes trying was where change began. Spring arrived in Flint. The snow disappeared. The river moved again. And Lorraine finally left the motel. I offered to buy her a large house. She refused immediately. Then I offered something smaller, closer to town. She refused that too. In the end, Lorraine chose a modest single-story home overlooking a quiet stretch of the river. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive. A small porch, a kitchen she liked, a bedroom with morning sunlight. Most importantly, it felt like hers. The first afternoon she received the keys, I stood beside her in silence. No reporters, no lawyers, no developers, just the two of us. Lorraine looked around the empty living room, then at her son. "You don't have to keep buying things for me." The words carried no anger, only honesty. I smiled sadly. "I know." For a moment, neither spoke. Then I finally said the thing I should have said years earlier. "I'm sorry." Lorraine looked at me carefully, not because she doubted the apology, but because she wanted to understand it. "I thought sending money was enough." My voice cracked slightly. "I thought taking care of everything financially meant I was taking care of you." Lorraine walked closer, her eyes filled with tears. "You weren't the only one who made mistakes." She reached for my hand. "I should have kept fighting harder to reach you." Neither excuse erased the damage. Neither apology erased the lost years. But truth finally stood where lies had stood before, and that mattered. A few weeks later, the rusted shack left the river. Not as trash, not on its way to a scrapyard. Volunteers carefully moved it to a community workshop, where people waiting for housing assistance could learn practical building skills. The insulation remained. The solar setup remained. Even the patched walls remained. People started calling it the teaching shelter, the little structure that refused to disappear. Whenever visitors asked why it mattered, Marcy always gave the same answer. Because somebody built dignity out of $10 and determination. Lorraine pretended she hated that description. Nobody believed her. One evening, near the beginning of summer, I helped hang the last picture frame inside Lorraine's new house. It was the same photograph she had carried through years of uncertainty, the same one she once protected inside plastic bags and hidden compartments. Now it rested on a real wall, safe, permanent. Lorraine stepped back and looked at it quietly. The late sunlight painted the room gold. Outside, the river reflected the fading sky. I watched her, waiting. She smiled softly, not the smile of someone who forgot what happened, the smile of someone who survived it. Then she looked toward the water beyond the window. "Promise me something. Anything." She nodded toward the river. "Leave the view untouched." I followed her gaze, and for the first time since returning home, I understood exactly what she meant. Some things were worth more than ownership, more than money, more than winning. They were worth protecting.